Recording is now in progress. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Kaulavani Pachaline Nivasisha Sunyavari Pushtatara Sataline Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone again. Welcome to those who maybe listen to this recording either tomorrow, next week, or in 10 years' time, as we said last time. Welcome. Thank you for giving your time. So, okay, still letting devotees in. Mavalavanga banging on the door. Let's let her in. Hare Krishna. Also, we might have a special guest this evening. The head Pujari of Radha Londonishvara. I still feel strange when I say that. After being head Pujari for so many years, whenever I say that, it sounds uncanny. It sounds strange. Anyway, he was asking for the link, so he might join us.
Did anything happen?
Sorry, your voice is breaking up, Madhu Manga.
It was a joke. Did anything happen?
I couldn't hear again. Yes, couldn't hear properly. Sometimes the bandwidth gets stretched a bit. So
what I said, did anything happen? It was a joke.
All right. Okay, we have to laugh. Ha, ha, ha. I didn't quite get it. Anyway, welcome everyone. Welcome. We have all our regular devotees who are eager to discuss the wonderful philosophy of Krishna consciousness, the philosophy of love. That's what it is about, the philosophy of developing love for the divine couple. And we're reading, we're on page 478 for those who have the book. And, we're reading about a very interesting subject, which is attentive and inattentive bhajan. That's the key, actually. This is the key to experiencing love, or the key, one of the keys, there's many keys, one of the keys to making advancement in our spiritual life is to be attentive to what we have been given. Srimad Bhagavatam and the holy name, etc. So this chapter is really inspiring us in the importance of this, you know. So we're on the section beginning in the following section. That's the section we're on. For those who have the book, 478, under the 4 asterisks.
I can.
Yeah, in the following section. Oh yeah, this was good. I remember from our reading last week. Now we're going to be going into, Maharaj is going into the Harinam Chintamani. So we may recognize this from our readings from that book, because we read the whole book together. So let's jump in. Hare Krishna. So Chandravali has a hand raised. You can begin.
There's nobody else there who's got the book. Anup might not, as she's cooking.
Yeah, and I don't have my book. I borrowed Vamsi Prabhu's copy. Anyway, we can read between us, no problem. I think who I saw Suniti Priya has a copy, I think. Anyway.
I do have a copy, but as I said, I have a problem putting my hand up. I don't know what to do. I got a new computer. So when Chandravali finish, will I do it, or do you want me to do it before?
You can go after Chandravali.
Okay, thank you.
You have to ask one of your children, Mother. You have to ask your daughter.
I did. I just now asked her, but then we started the class. I said, leave it afterward. I'll ask you. So,
she will suss it out in less than a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
In the following section, we shall look at 3 kinds of inattentiveness. Some recommended means to overcome them. Haridas Thakur names the varieties of inattentiveness as apathy, laziness and distraction. Unfortunately, a devotee's long-standing connection with sense gratification conditions him in ways that are generally unfavorable for attentive sadhana. Sensual acts, among other things, have left their impression within the subtle body, which means that a sadhaka's memories are full of thoughts of past. Ideally, Harinam should be accompanied by remembrance of Krishna, but deep conditionally suppresses spiritual thoughts with mundane ones. Hence, the devotee's inability to focus on Krishna's names and pastimes result in inattentiveness.
Yes.
Bhakti Vinod warns that unless a devotee resolutely stays away from this ingrained habit, even chanting 64 inattentive rounds a day will not produce a drop of taste for the Lord's name. How frightening.
Well,
Yeah.
so you can see how we have to practice, just like I've mentioned it a few times, that we are yogis, okay? We are bhakti yogis. So, and our practice of yoga is hearing and chanting about Krishna. So we really have to practice being attentive, you know, and we get practice every morning when we chant our japa, but it's very important that we learn to be attentive. Like here, you can chant 64 rounds, but if you're not paying attention to those 64 rounds, you know, you're not going to taste not a drop of taste. And
I was just thinking, Prabhu, about paying attention, and I was thinking, like during the day, even when we're not chanting, if we're paying attention to everything we do and how it's, how our trying to put our best consciousness into everything that we do, then we will automatically be there when the chanting is like, when we're doing the chanting. It won't be like only when we're chanting, but like if we're doing it all day, then it'll become a habit, like that.
Second habit. It become
Yeah.
That's a very good point. And I often try to do that after studying this and reading this. I was putting that into practice, things I'm doing throughout the day to try and pay attention. And that's why if we're inattentive on our basic duties throughout the day and the mind's going here and there, what can we expect when we sit down to meditate upon the holy name? Only but the same, Yes. So thank you for that. You can carry on, Navachandravali. Apathy.
Apathy means a lack of feeling, emotion, interest, or concern. It is the same indifference that the jiva exhibited to Krishna before entering the material world, and the same indifference that led to its attraction for sense gratification. The cause for attraction to Maya is that apathy is not a natural attribute of the soul. The jiva must exhibit emotions for an interest in something. And if that something is not spiritual, it will be material. Thus, while apathy can be a state of mind, it is a temporary one. And if the practitioner does not conquer it, he's conquered by it. The Sanskrit word for apathy is udasinya. Udasinya. The root as means to sit, and with the prefix alt, the meaning becomes to sit apart or to take no interest in. Udasina means sitting apart or indifference, and udasinya is what is related to udasina, which is indifference, apathy, disregard. Indifference to a person is certainly offensive, and indifference to an activity renders it ineffective and sometimes dangerous, as in the case of cutting bread with a knife. What then of inattentiveness in sadhana bhakti, which scriptures say is already like walking a razor's edge? we see that the word udasana is repeatedly used in the Bhagavad Gita to express the sense of neutrality, such as when Krishna says, "Oh, I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral." Srimati Radharani also uses udasana in the context of transcendental indifference during a pastime wherein she thinks that Krishna has abandoned her. I was engaged in my own playful activities at home, and because of my childish innocence, I did not know right from wrong. Therefore, as it Therefore, is it good for you to have forced us into being so much attracted to you and then to have neglected us? Now you are indifferent to us. Do you think that is right?
Right. Anyway, just pause it. Any comments or questions or reflections, as Vaisheshika often says? Any reflections? This section that we just read, where Maharaj is elaborating on apathy, or the word apathy means indifferent. He's quoting from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's book, Brahmana and the Vaishnava. And it refers to the same point in another section of this Sankalpa Kaumudi, which I was actually speaking on yesterday in our third class on making friends with the mind. But it's an interesting thing to contemplate, because Bhaktisiddhanta describes, without getting into a controversy whether the jiva comes from the spiritual world, that comes from Mahavishnu or whatever, but whatever it is, it comes down. But the reason is, the first reason is indifference. One becomes indifferent to the Lord, as Bhaktisiddhanta describes like that. Yeah. And indifferent, as Maharaj said, means nowhere in particular. You're kind of in the middle ground, but you can't remain there. So if you're indifferent to the Lord, he says, if you're indifferent to Krishna, you have a fascination with the material energy. To that degree, we're fascinated by the material energy. To that degree, we are indifferent to Krishna. Now, if we're fascinated by the material energy because it's Krishna's material energy, that's something different. But if we're fascinated by it in a material way, that means we're indifferent to Krishna. So it's an interesting meditation, because so we should try not to be indifferent to the service that we have, and especially to chanting. And Maharaj is going to speak about how we can not be indifferent. That's next, Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting statement by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It's the first station coming down. That's like your exit, where you're apathetic. Means you just don't care. Yeah. So food for thought. Hare Krishna. You can.
I like the way Maharaj is telling about cutting the bread with a knife, and would you do that to sadhana bhakti? Like you'd cut your finger if you wasn't attentive. So same, why you
now? Yeah, that's right. But at the same time, as Maharaj said in the beginning, that we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace, in that we are conditioned souls. So we can't expect to have a mindset of a pure, unadulterated devotee. So we're going to experience this in our spiritual practices. Sometimes we feel indifferent to the holy name, but so that's there, but let's try to address it. We should pray to Krishna. Please, my Lord, please don't let me be indifferent to your divine holy name, or your service. But we will experience that because we are conditioned souls. But so don't beat yourself up too much.
Yeah, I just went into Gokucha. I was reading Canto 3, and it's so complicated, my rishis. So like, how can you be attentive when you reading something that is like you kind of not understanding. And at another point, you could be reading Krishna's pastimes and you are really, tuned in. So it's quite difficult to adjust both things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anyone could address that? There's a question there from Chandravali. Interesting point. So she's saying sometimes, like, we may be reading third canto, fifth canto, or we might be reading the description of all the dynasties in the ninth canto, and the reading's a bit indifferent because we may not be getting so much taste from it. So has anyone had the experience, and how do we address it?
Well, I used to find that when I was reading on my own, but when I started reading with a Sangha, Srimad Bhagavatam Sangha, there's always a discussion and keeps me alert. And a lot of questions are simply sorted out because people are talking, and from there I get the idea, oh no, this should be that.
Very good point. Yeah, thank you, my Rajka, for sure. So Satamba Sangha Mama Viyado Bhavanti Krikana Rashayana Kata. Yeah, so Rashayana comes from discussing amongst ourselves, Yeah, so that's one thing.
Is that
Yes.
where is that the parts of the Bhagavatam like that you read all the dynasties and the names and all that?
That's I was reading that recently. That was that's the ninth canto. There is, I mean, it's there throughout the Bhagavatam, but especially in the ninth canto, leading up to the appearance of Krishna.
Yeah, I always think when I'm reading it, I think like these are people. So I try and say their names like with attention because I'm going to get mercy from them anyway. So
Yeah,
and
nice.
I did that.
I also do that as well.
Mm.
I think I mentioned last time that sometimes I read and I enter and I picture the scenes that I'm reading. I picture the personalities. I picture the place. I try to. I speculate because I haven't been to the places. I haven't seen the personalities, but I make it into a film within my mind, or a drama, so to speak, and it gets it's very relishable. So very nice point from Mother Lavanga Latika, that these names are, in one sense, a lot of the names they're divine names. They're because they're in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's why it's good to try and pronounce them as well, out of respect. So that's good. That's not being apathetic to something that you might find a little bit boring, dare I say.
or if I do find it boring, I focus on some other thing like it's Prabhupada's book, I'll read it attentively, or I just throw myself at it from some angle, because otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I just find some angle like, oh, this is good for me, or it's scripture. So you just read it like dutifully sometimes, even if you're not getting any relish out of it, but just do it in a like dutiful kind of mindful way, and then not really expecting to be like amazed by it or thrilled by it or whatever. Just like read it for the sake of reading. If
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. So read in a dutiful way. Another point, you can also, some people recite prayers before they read. That's nice as well. But and sometimes we may find, just by Krishna's grace, that some reading will touch our heart. We may be reading a pastime and all of a sudden it really enters into our heart and even might make us a bit emotional. So sometimes that happens, and that's Krishna's grace and Krishna's mercy. It may not always be there. So sometimes that happens as well, But so is that okay, Mother Chandravali? Some pointers there?
Yeah. So, because the chapter before that I was reading and it was all about like Krishna's Leela. Then it was really like, oh yes, and then you come to this, and then your mind like, okay, but you want to read. So I just went to Gokshadway.
Can I share something about
Please,
that?
yes.
I was when I was talking to my brother the other day. He's just starting Bhakti Shastri in Mauritius, and he's somebody who's not really into studying so much. He gets bored very quickly when it comes to like when you categorize something and when you have to list something down, different aspects of this and this and this, and it just
Right.
goes out of his head. But one thing he definitely has is attachment to Krishna, attachment to doing things for Krishna, for the deities. So then
Yeah.
what I told him, and that's something that I did when I did Bhakti Shastri, was that everything I'm going to learn here, everything I probably have to memorize, even though it doesn't seem like it, every single thing is going to make me learn how to love Krishna better.
That's nice.
Even though indirectly it doesn't look like
Mindset.
it's directly connected, but actually
Yeah.
it is. So that, especially when you think in the context of Srimad Bhagavatam, we know the whole point of Bhagavatam is to make us fall in love with Radha and Krishna.
That's a nice point,
It's
actually.
taking us to 10th canto, more specifically the Rasa Panchadhyaya chapters. You know, that's what the Bhagavatam is helping us purify ourselves, qualify ourselves for that. And it's especially you have the Paribhas Sutra, Iti Chamshakala Pumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. You know, Paribhasa Sutra is such an important verse, is that every single thing that seems to be contradictory to the Paribhasa Sutra, we have to see that supposedly contradictory thing in light of that Paribhasa Sutra. So how is it pointing towards Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam? Krishna is a supreme personality of Godhead, and how is it helping me get closer to him? So
Right.
that,
Thank you, Vamsivat. That's a very nice point, and it reminds me of a point that Shivaram Swami Maharaj brings up in this book. I forget what chapter, but he brings it up as an underlying cause or need for actually attaining bhava. One of the practices is that everything you do internally is a prayer to obtain your loving relationship with Krishna. Whether it's Ekadashi, whether it's fasting on Janmashtami, you're praying for grace, you're praying for love. You know, it's one of the interesting, you just reminded me of that. It's like one time my Guru Maharaj, he does that. He kind of, sometimes he asks questions, like the disciples are there and he asks a question, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And then, you know, one time, I forget the exact question, but the reason we're doing everything is to obtain love, is to obtain emotion for our original. So, you know, it just reminded me of that, Vamsivat, a good point, that we're doing it in the hope of attaining treasure, you know? So the treasure of love. So the activities that we do, whether it's fasting or Ekadashi or whatever it may be, we have a Sankalpa behind it. Anyway, I think we're getting a bit esoterical.
but also like the if we're just mentioning the list of kings or the dynasties in Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
There's a reason why that's there. I remember hearing a reason, but I can't find it. I was trying to look for it everywhere. But I heard there's a reason why that's there for us to read when you're going through Bhagavatam.
Yeah, I'm sure someone like Chaitanya Charan will probably give a good answer to that. But for me, when I was reading Ninth Canto, it was like a drama, which would, because I knew in this list of names and dynasties, Krishna's going to come.
Mm.
And it was like a whole drama was being was being spoken of by Sukadeva Goswami, just for the entrance of Krishna to come in the 10th canto. So, because I knew Krishna was coming at some point in one of these dynasties. So it was quite exciting. As I was turning the pages, I knew I was getting closer to Krishna's appearance. So that's the way Sukadeva Goswami kind of brilliantly spoke to Maharaj Parikshit, you know, kind of created a whole excitement. Didn't just go straight to Krishna. He's this dynasty, that dynasty, they gave birth to this, they gave birth to him, his sons gave birth, and their sons had this sons. You know, at some point, Krishna's going to be in there. So that's quite exciting, you know. All right, let's read a bit more. Now we've got excited about reading. Let's read some more. You can just carry on, Mother Chandravali, another couple of paragraphs, and then we'll...
I'm really for which chapter of the book are we on?
Oh, you have my copy, isn't it? There, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on page 480.
80.
That might be easier. Go to page 480.
Okay,
You got my tatty copy. I've got your nice copy.
thank you.
There
So
are different, go, yeah.
carry on, Mochandra. Yeah.
There are different ways for a devotee to rid himself of apathetic inattention, dasina pramada. The most preferred solution is to chant by the side of an advanced Vaishnava, taking note of his mood in japa and any visible signs of the pleasure
Oh,
he
yes.
tastes from the holy names. In a humble state of mind, the neophyte may emulate these attributes with the aspiration that in due course he too will become fixed in chanting and privileged to taste its nectar.
Yeah. Sorry to keep jumping in.
No, it's good because that's what
I can remember many years ago when Purnachandra was still with us. He later became Purnachandra Maharaj. He was based at our temple. This was when I first joined in the early 90s. And literally he would sit down for japa and he would close his eyes and his head would just go from side to side with a big smile on his face for the whole 2 hours, like almost like effortless, joyful devotion. And at the end, about 5 to 7, he would open his eyes with a big smile. He would look around, and I would sit next to him and I would watch him and I would sit next to him. I always got so much inspiration. I was just thinking of him this morning, funny enough, when I was chanting. And it's exactly as Maharaj says here, I got so much inspiration from being near him. And sometimes what would happen is all the devotees during japa would go here and go there, you know. So sometimes at the end of japa, there's only me and him sitting in the temple room, you know. And a couple of times he opened his eyes, he looked at me and he smiled and he patted me on the head, you know, gave me his blessing, like patted me on the head, you know, because I was still there. But he was first. I used to always say that Purnachandra had already gone back to Godhead before he went back to Godhead. Seemed like every time he sat down to chant japa, then he went back to Godhead. You know, it's quite amazing. So yeah, so whenever you get a chance, yeah, sit down with devotees who have got taste for the name. Anyway, sorry,
Prabhu,
help but putting that in. Hare Krishna, yes.
sorry, Prabhu.
Jambavati, yes.
Just, I remember Purnachandra very well as well,
yeah,
because he
he
was
was.
coming to Lithuania quite, and we have, because Lithuania, not so many devotees, so we had very nice meetings, and I remember them. Would it be possible for you to tell more about him if you sometime meeting, special meeting or something, or interview or something like online? Or...
Yeah, I can. I mean, that's the main thing that I remember. Well, not just the main thing. I mean, there is other things as well. I mean, yeah, I can. We can speak about it after. You can send me a message.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
no
so
problem.
much, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare
Happy
Krishna.
to glorify and exalted Vaishnava. Okay.
I just remember one thing about him was when I first used to do service, and I'd have to ring Archana because I think she was head pujari, wasn't she, for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then
You
I'll
said it
ring
before,
to talk to her about my services, and he'll pick up the phone and he'll say, he'll say something like, oh yes, my wife is, I am such a fallen soul, I'll give it to my wife, she's really, and he'll really glorify her, So gentle way of talking he used to talk, and I'd be like, I'm just new there and I just want to ask about service. It's amazing. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Quick, before we go on somewhere else again.
In the absence of a great Vaishnava, a devotee can also chant in a temple or a holy place in the company of peers and in the presence of Tulsi Devi. Needless to say, the number of rounds chanted must be fixed at a minimum of 16. However, if it is possible, then the more rounds, the better. For a devotee so inclined and somewhat self-controlled, for devotees who will not fall asleep, Bhaktivinoda Thakur suggests that they retire to a solitary place and chant japa with their heads covered with a cloth. The reasoning is that the sound of the holy name will awaken attraction and melt the heart, dispersing the attitude of apathy and indifference.
Yeah, this is all from Harinam Chintamani.
Mm.
Yeah. All right, someone else like to read? Any questions on that or any comments on this? So we had nice discussion on overcoming apathy. Maharaj has given 3 points here: to be in association of devotees, to chant in the holy place or near Tulsi. This is being apathetic to our chanting. Yeah. Or we can do some, we might say extreme things. We might go to a solitary place and put a cloth over her head, or a bucket. That works very well. Put a bucket over your head.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, please, Mother Shauda. Yes. Is that Mother Shauda? Yes.
Yes,
Go ahead, Mother. Yes.
she's muted herself.
You're muted if you're speaking. We can't hear you because you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I was reading last night about Raghunath Bhatt, his biography.
Okay.
And then he was asking how I can get in love with the holy name and other things to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said him 3 things which you just said.
All right.
Chanting the holy name, association of the devotees, and reading Srimad Bhagavatam. If you follow these 3 things, you will get the love of Krishna, he said.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That's from Chaitanya Tatamrita, Lord Chaitanya's instruction to Raghunath Bhatta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think we call on Suniti Priya to read.
Yeah, where are we? Is it to know which of the solution?
Yes.
That's correct.
Thank you. To know which of the solution is most suited for him, a devotee can ask his spiritual master, other senior Vaishnavis, or his counselor. The second type of inattentiveness is laziness. Jada Pramada.
Yadya Pramahada.
Yeah. Jada means cold, rigid, dull, dumb, and apathetic. Readers may inquire, what is the difference between apathy and laziness? The two are certainly similar, although they have distinguishing characteristics. In the context of Nama Sankirtan, we answered. Apathy indicates a lack of attraction and motivation to chant. Laziness is the unwillingness to make the physical effort to chant. One is about the lack of feeling and the other lack of activity. The lazy devotee may have some attraction to chanting, but due to the mode of ignorance, he is too slothful to chant. Apathic sadhaka lacks attraction, but at the same time is not averse to sadhana. When he chants, it is mechanical. A lazy devotee finds chanting a burdensome and will quickly fall asleep or become distracted by some non-devotee's devotional activity. Such a devotee is someone who is expert at wasting time and can never finish his rounds. As with apathy, the best panacea for the disease is to chant with an advanced devotee. The sound vibration he emits will give the lazy neophyte the inspiration and strength to sever the bonds of ignorance. Moreover, the conduct of the advanced devotee is such that he never wastes a moment of his time, but is always engaged in the service or his chanting Krishna's name. When a lazy practitioner sees such intense dedication, his heart is stirred and his attitude to Nama Sankirtan changes.
Yeah, just on this point, think yesterday I was, I mean, I couldn't help myself. I thought about it before I did it, but there's one devotee in the temple room, and every time he's in a temple room chanting japa, he falls asleep. I watched it last Sunday and yesterday as well. He was doing the same thing. So eventually I went and spoke to him, which was as nice as possible. Said, "Best Babu, you can't do two things at once. If you want to sleep, go upstairs and sleep. If you want to chant japa, you chant japa." Now, I thought it was important to actually tell him that and to kind of illustrate that he's actually offending the holy name by not trying, for instance, by like if you're tired and you don't stand up, you just keep falling asleep. Have you ever seen that when someone's trying to be awake and it's impossible? They lift their head up for about 2 seconds, then then I was watching him because it was a distraction from my japa. I thought, do I sit here watching this? Do I sit here tolerating that? So it's causing me a distraction. I was watching other devotees and everyone just ignoring him. His head's down like. So I couldn't, I had to go and speak to him in the end. And the point I'm making that is, so if and he's been initiated, now a couple of years, been around for a number of years. So it's okay for devotees who've been around 2 or 3 months to constantly fall asleep in japa. It's not okay, but it happens and you expect it. But when you're initiated and you've been around for a number of years, Krishna wants more from you. You cannot continue like that. Otherwise it becomes offensive. I mean, I told him, not in such a direct way, but I did tell him that and later I saw him in the morning and I said, actually, what you're doing now is offensive and it could cause you trouble for the next many years. So I kind of woke him up a bit. I tried to anyway. I did it in a nice way as possible, Anyway, just that was important for us. This is called laziness. Yeah, this is being lazy. We just can't be bothered. Even if you're falling asleep, you just stay falling asleep, Better to sleep, rather than try and chant at the same time, Anyway, that was my outburst I had yesterday.
Stand up and walk. Would that help?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why
Go around Tulsi or something,
Don't sit down if you're sleeping. No, don't sit down if you're going to fall asleep. That's what I mean. So we have to kind of like this point. This is what I think. This is an aspect of not being lazy sometimes. And chanting is a lot, Sometimes we sit down and we begin chanting. It's like we have to climb up a mountain, isn't it? It's like, wow, God. But we have to make the effort. And we shouldn't be lazy. We should be eager to climb that mountain of the holy name and get to the top, so we can have a nice view of Krishna.
And I think, Prabhu, it is good if somebody actually tells you when you're doing something like that, because sometimes you don't understand what you're doing yourself when you're like, and if someone says it to you, you think, oh my gosh, that's really bad, and then you kind of pull yourself together a bit. But until someone does that, you may just remain in that like sleeping.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. I was watching other devotees and everyone was just, happily walking past them. But you have to do it with sensitivity. You have to do it so they don't get offended, and especially if you have a relationship with them. So it should kind of be like a loving instruction. Although yesterday I think it came out a bit intense for him, but I tried my best. But yeah, so that's the point of making. We should help each other, and especially if we've been around a few years, then we should be mindful of younger devotees who are just entering into the realm of bhajan or chanting the holy name, and offer them help and advice.
Yeah. Even if you have been chanting for a long while, you can still learn from younger devotees, new ones.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
I find that living with somebody who's lived in the ashram, gosh, it's really nice to see how the chanting is like sit in one place and all the 16 rounds. Nothing will be done till the rounds are finished, and it's giving me such a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, that's a standard we should all try and work towards and all have as much as we can, depending on the circumstances. You had to sit down or whatever, sit down and walk around, but 16 rounds, you know.
Yeah.
All right, let's read a bit more. Yeah, Suniti Priya, continue reading.
Does, does interest to overcome the lower modes, a neophyte gradually takes shelter of the holy name and dedicates himself to increasing the quality and quantity of his chanting. If Krishna, who is within his devotee's heart, sense that such determination is sincere, he removes the inertia.
Yeah.
Thank you. His devotees to ignorance, and if the devotees remains resolved, the Lord blesses him with ever increasing taste for chanting. How this wonderful reciprocation unfolds is describable in this beautiful verse.
Just read the translation. I think we all know of this verse.
Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is a Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotees, cleans desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear. His message, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. The third form of inattentiveness is distraction. Viksapa. The root kasip means to throw, and when prefixed with v, the meaning is to throw, scatter, dispense. Thus, viksense means throwing, scarcity, distraction, viksap, pramata takes place with devotee attention habitually taken from meditation on Namasankirtan to pity non-devotional acts or thoughts. Most often, a devotee's mind is distracted by thoughts of sense gratification. The word viksapa is evocative. When a devotee scatters his mind everywhere other than where it should be, namely Krishna's name, then he's said to be distracted.
Okay, thank you. Let's just pause there. Has anyone experienced that? Not sure we have. Distracted. Sometimes I experience that, or I'm scatterbrained. I'm trying to chant. Normally it happens when there's things on our mind, you know. There may be things have happened or things have been said or situations have come up and it's on your mind that, you know, the day before and in the morning before japa, and then you sit down and you have to make an extra effort to push it all to side, you know, and just to concentrate on the name, you know. So this is called, distraction or vikshepa. And but this bit, I'm sure, hopefully devotees have experienced this, where anyone experienced that where you're tired, but you chant, and then you stop being tired? Anyone experienced that?
Yeah, I get that almost every day.
I do as well.
Yeah, and then, well, I get that, and I chant, and I get, I manage to overcome my tiredness, but normally it hits me after the morning program. The tiredness comes back with vengeance sometimes. But that's Krishna's grace. Okay, we're tired, but we're still making an effort. We are not being lazy. Okay, we're tired, but now's not a time for sleeping. Let me chant Krishna's holy name. And then at the end, Krishna senses that determination, and he removes the inertia. And how he does that, I mean, he doesn't come. I guess he comes personally. He does that by turning up or giving us insight into the sweetness of the chanting. So it becomes like impossible to fall asleep because it's so sweet, you know. That's Krishna's grace, you know. So hopefully we've experienced that occasionally or sometimes. Yeah. So then, Vikshepa Pamada. Any other reflections on this? Being scatterbrained. After there's so many. Also, this is what's the age of over communication? What's it called? The age of There's so much stuff we have to hear in one day. So many issues that it can cause us can affect our japa. So let's be on the watch out for that. Right, let's call on Vamsivat Prabhu. You still there? You have the book?
Yes. But you talk about scatterbrain.
Yeah.
One rule I try to follow, it doesn't always work, is that I try not to get involved in talking about issues during Japa time or before Japa time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
or even like until Japa is done. Try not to get involved in any of it.
Yeah, you don't want to grind any axe, whatever it may be. Yeah, let's prepare ourselves for japa. It's like a meditation. So everything can be done after japa. The world's not going to crumble. It's not as if the earth's going to stop spinning. If you deal with the issue, unless you deal with the issues.
One thing that particularly inspires me at the moment is, last week we were reading Brihad Bhagavatamrita.
Yeah.
I don't think we've read that verse yet, but maybe we have. But because Gopa Kumar, he's so absorbed in watching, not watching at gazing at Lord Jagannath's beautiful face, he's neglecting his japa.
Yeah, that part we read.
Yeah,
Perhaps
and then
that
his
part we
guru
read the week before.
and his guru instructs him that your japa is an intimate form of worshipping Lord Jagannath, so you should not neglect it.
Yeah, yeah.
So that kind of helps me to bring my service and my japa together. It's like, I mean, it always is, but sometimes it doesn't come to the forefront of our minds, of my mind. So
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's a wonderful part we're reading at the present moment. Yeah, that part. Yeah, he's
That last
the
week.
Gopal mantra.
No, week before.
Week before, he's very life and soul. The
Yeah.
Gopal mantra that's brought him to all these wonderful destinations and realizations. He becomes overwhelmed by the darshan of Jagannath and puts it to one side. But just for a short time, his guru gives him instruction. Yeah. Okay, then we have a little bit of time. You can read Vamsivat Prabhu from this kind of inattention, I think. Yeah. You got it? 482.
the third form of inattentiveness.
This kind of inattention.
Okay. This kind of inattention is particularly pernicious.
Pernicious.
Pernicious. Offenses caused by distracted sadhana sow seeds of deeply rooted material attachments that sadhakas find difficult to overcome. The fruits of these seeds include affinity for wealth, prestige, followers, and sex. If this offense is not quickly uprooted, a devotee can easily become illusioned by temptation and abandon his efforts at pure devotion. In such a fallen condition, he becomes either a pseudo-guru or an out-and-out sense enjoyer. Needless to say, the offense of distraction makes a devotee all the more neglectful in chanting. If by some good fortune, either by his own intelligence or by the prompting of well wishers, the devotee realizes the implication of his distracted sadhana, he should immediately act to reform himself. He must banish all impure thoughts and allurements from his mind by consigning himself to Vaishnava culture and tradition. The following paragraphs elaborate on how this may be accomplished. The implicit psychology of distraction is that there is something more interesting and valuable than that offered by the Vaikuntha worlds of service to Krishna. The solution to distraction is deep immersion in Vaishnava lifestyle, including attaya, tilak, meals, and a daily spiritual regimen. Thakur Bhaktivinoda emphasizes the mesmerizing potency of Vaishnava festivals when they are strictly observed, and he selects these celebrations as a panacea for the distracted mind. Vaishnava culture also includes regular attendance at temple functions and faithful worship of the Lord's deity form. The Vaishnava calendar is replete events celebrating the Lord's incarnations, pastimes, and associates. Included amongst these are the vow of Ekadashi and the appearance day of Krishna, Janmashtami. During such observances, the wayward sadhaka should avoid eating and drinking, and in the company of pure devotees chant and hear the names and glories of Lord Krishna. If possible, these events may be celebrated in a Gaudiya Dham, but if not, then in the temple where saintly devotees congregate. By wholehearted participation in such festivities, a devotee will gradually regain his good fortune and rekindle his taste for Krishna's names and pastimes. From the insignificant distractions of Maya, his attention will be brought back to the significant, ever-sweet names of Krishna. Rupa Goswami describes how such a devotee revives his taste for chanting, and thereby his attention to the same. Yat Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya Ito Patapta Rasanasya Rochikanu Kintvadarad Anudinam Kalusaiva Jushta Swadvi Kramad Bhavati Tad Kadarumula Hantri. The holy name, character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna are all transcendently sweet like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root.
Okay, let's just stop there for any questions or reflections. So this is good to keep in mind. I mean, we live in, I mean, myself, I still, I live in a temple, I think I can say that. So I'm living at ashram, but I'm part of the temple program most mornings, and I think Vamsi Prabhu and others. But just keep it in mind, if for some, what Maharaj is saying here, in regards to being distracted, or in regards to experiencing the result of that distraction, which is the arising of material desires, it describes here, attraction for wealth, prestige, followers, etc. Then what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we need to jump in to what Prabhupada has given us. If we're feeling a bit down, a little bit depressed, or a little bit uninspired, then we may make arrangements to come to the morning program every day for 2 weeks or something, or come to Bhagavatam class, or don't skirt around the outside of a festival. Go to the festival and get into the festival. Take, in other words, like take shelter. Sometimes we attend a festival, we simultaneously attend the festival, but we don't attend the festival. We're there just stamping, putting our ticket as doing our duty of attending the festival. But especially our temple, it gets quite intense because it's such a small temple room. So I'm just trying to emphasize this point that Maharaj is making here, is to really, that can really help us, sometimes you might give this advice to devotees who don't come to the temple often, and they're feeling a little bit down. They may not be chanting all their rounds. Just encourage, come for Guru Puja every day or something, or come for class, It all has a therapeutic effect, Vaishnava festivals, etc. Attire, get fired up. If you don't normally wear a sari, get fired up and put a sari on and come to the temple, or dhoti, or whatever it may be. But shake things up a bit. Sometimes we have to shake things up a bit. We get stuck in a rut, So we have to shake out the rug, And just some thoughts on that. Any further comments or questions there? All right, I reckon we got 5 minutes left. Let me be greedy and jump in and read. I can't see any hands there. So, okay, bottom of page 483. As part of a repentant offender's re-emission into Vaishnav culture. Okay, so that sums up what I just said. A part of a repentant offender's readmission into Vaishnav culture, we should not neglect to mention the need for deity worship, Haribol, Archana. I mean, most of us here engage in deity worship in one form or another. The worship of Krishna's deity form is compulsory for both neophytes and householders. Indeed, it is so spiritually beneficial that immediate and even advanced devotees often serve personal deities. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatana Goswami to write in detail about the importance and process of deity worship. That's Hari Bhakti Vilas, I think. The Acharya fulfilled the Lord's order by compiling Hari Bhakti Vilas, worshipping the deity of Madan Mohan, and constructing the first temple in Vrindavan. Shri Narada Muni is considered the Acharya of Archana, and he has compiled instructions for regulated worship in his Narada Pancharatra. His path of worship is known as the Pancharatrika Mahaga, which Prahlad Maharaj included as one of the 9 limbs of pure devotional service. The process of deity worship is especially recommended for a devotee new to the path of worship taught in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavat Marg. The main aspects of the Bhagavat school are Nam Sankirtan, hearing from saints and remembering the Lord. Thus, for someone who is struggling with being attentive to Bhagavat Vidhi, Pancharatrika Vidhi is compulsory. Oh, so that's a nice explanation. Okay, why should I do deity worship? Well, are you ever inattentive? So it might help you. Pancharatrika, engage in Pancharatrika Vidhi. Deity worship, which includes dressing the deity. Yeah, I think Shauda is here. She was dressing Radha Krishna this morning, Monday, third day. Looked very beautiful, Mother Shauda. Thank you for nice dressing.
Vanshi Prabhu helped me.
Who?
Vanshi Prabhu helped me.
Ha. Yeah, and I'm doing tomorrow by the blessings of the head Pujari, Hare Krishna. Deity worship, which includes dressing the deity, cooking them a meal, and offering them arti, brings devotees into such spiritual proximity to the Lord that even the hardest heart will melt. Such inner experiences revive a devotee's attraction to chanting and eradicates the spiritually ruinous habit of distraction. Krishna assures the repentant devotee that even though crossing the reservoir of offenses is an ordeal, by worshipping his deity, the sadhaka will be successful. Amazing, huh? And the verse, Evam kriya yoga pate pumam vaidika tantrikai achan upayata shitim pato vindati abipsitam. By worshipping me through the various methods prescribed in the Vedas and Tantras, one will gain from me his desired perfection in both this life and the next. Indeed, not only will the sincere devotee become free of offenses, but if he continues to worship without the desire for fruitive results, he will be blessed with pure devotion. Krishna continues. Mam eva nira pakshena bhakti yogena vindati bhakti yogam salabhata evam ya pujayeti mam. But one who simply engages in devotional service with no consideration of fruitive results attains me. Thus, whoever worships me according to the process I have described will ultimately attain pure devotional service unto me. Okay, it's just hit 7 o'clock. There's just one little bit left, but it's 7 o'clock. We'll finish this next week. We'll finish the chapter next week. Any closing or comments or reflections on that? There's a lot of pujaris here. So
I think the deity worship is so important then, we continue and you will get purified one day.
Yeah, it's very much part of our ISKCON Vaishnav culture. It should be, but it's for us. So yes, so this is the role it plays in helping sadhakas. Yeah, it very much probably helping us more than what we probably realize, actually. You know, worshipping the deity, taking darshan of the deity, sacrificing our time for the deity, making garlands for the deity, just looking at Rajkashore, making daily sweets for the deity, making a fruit sweet, you know, surrendering our time and our energy. It pleases Krishna. So Marge is bringing this up as a remedy for overcoming what might be distraction. Yeah. Yes. All right. Let's pause there. Wonderful reading. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Hare Krishna. Hope this was some inspiration, today's reading. And please join us for tomorrow, if you can, where we'll be continuing with Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3. Okay?
You're doing the link all week.
Oh, yeah. So I will send the link. Yeah. I'm doing the link all week.
Please, for me too, please, Molly Prabhu.
Why? What's happening?
For me too, please.
Oh, it's a link. Sorry. I thought you said pray for you. Certainly, I didn't. Yeah, send the link. Yeah.
Please pray too. Please. Also, you can pray.
I shall pray and I'll send you the link. Okay, thank you, everyone. Wish you a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. His Grace Holy Prabhu ki jai. Thank you.
Dream of Krishna. I'm going to press the 18 for all. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.